Hi, everyone. While we're waiting for more attendees to come in, I just wanted to take some time to talk a bit about Energy Month. So National Energy Month is actually organized by the Department of Energy. And in honor of this, or in celebration of this, at CGTC, which is a part of UVI, we've decided to host a series of webinars all about energy. So some of these have already happened, and you can watch them on YouTube or on our Facebook page if you missed it. But today we'll be talking about powering through a blackout, which is a take on our resource guide, which we had published last month, where we talk about different strategies for when the lights go out. And our last webinar of the month is going to be on Monday. And this is actually a panel discussion. And so we will have Martin Ford, who is an energy consultant from Rocky Mountain Institute. He focuses on the Caribbean and policy. Kyle Fleming is the director of the Virgin Islands Energy Office. And Doug White, who is a local architect here in the Virgin Islands. And they're going to be really discussing their different opinions and visions for the future of the Caribbean in terms of the energy transition. The final webinar you see on this page has actually been postponed to mid-November. And this is a workshop on household energy and water resilience, which is hosted by the Hazard Mitigation and Resilience Plan team, which consists of UVI and VITEMA members, and also the Keep Safe Enterprise Group, which is a group based in Puerto Rico. They created a guide. It's also available online, and it is very easy to understand and meant for the general public. And it talks all about home improvements that you can make to make your home more resilient and to be better prepared for any disasters. So that's about Energy Month. Hopefully we can give people a few more minutes to file in, and we'll start at like 5 minutes past. Also, a bit more about Energy Month. For more information, then you can visit our website, which is www.cgtc-usbi.com, and then click on the events page, and you will see all of the events for Energy Month, even the ones that already happened, and you can watch the videos there if you missed anything or learn more about the upcoming events. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about powering through a blackout. To begin, I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Ariel Stoltz. I work at the Caribbean Green Technology Center at the University of the Virgin Islands. And I'm here with Dr. Greg Warnell.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Craig Guanel. I'm the director of the Green Technology Center at the UVI.
So this past month, we worked on creating a resource guide about powering through a blackout. And this guide includes a range of options for any budget to try and create ways to for what to do when the power goes out. So we talk about different renewable energy devices, batteries, how to use them, how to charge them, and really just giving you some ideas of what you can do to make yourself more resilient at your household at the household level. So before we dive in, then just a few housekeeping rules for this webinar. So as hosts, we cannot see or hear you, but if you would like to ask us questions, please do. You can click on the Q&A box, and if you would like your question answered right away, such as a clarifying questions, please specify so that we can get to it. If not, we will take all the questions at the end of the presentation. In the meantime, you can chat using the chat button, but we will mainly answer the questions in the Q&A. Following the presentation, if you would like to ask a question in person, then you need to click the raise hand icon. Then we can unmute you so you can participate in the discussion. And finally, just be respectful of others. So why is it important to have, why is it important to have strategies in your household for powering through a blackout? So first, the Virgin Islands experiences more and longer outages than the national average. Sorry about that. And one of the reasons is because we have natural hazards which cause prolonged blackouts. We also often experience service interruptions. So this here is this is from WAPA's website, and it shows the outages that were experienced on Monday, I believe. And so you can see that there were 94 outages just on Monday, and this happens quite often, as many of you know. And the final reason is because here the electricity prices are much higher than in the US, about 4 times higher. And so this means that some of these strategies involve energy efficiency. And if you're able to use less energy in your home, then you can reduce oversizing in your system, whether that's a renewable energy system, whether that's a generator, or whether that's an array of batteries. And so this not only saves you money month after month, but also makes it easier during blackouts to make sure that you can sustain yourself. So because of all of those reasons, we have created a guide on small-scale renewable energy devices and batteries. And so here is the guide in print, and it's also available on our website, where you can see much of the same information and even a bit more. So in this webinar, we're going to go through everything that's mentioned in this handout and try and dig in and give you also some demonstrations of some of these devices. So to start, these are some things that you can do right now to go off-grid. Sometimes all you might need is lighting, is your critical services. So one of those is going to be lighting. So there are some options like inflatable solar lanterns. There are LED light bulbs, which are powered by solar, and even outdoor motion sensor lights, which are also powered by solar. So these can be a really great option for giving you light when there is a blackout. Also, for communication, you may use a power bank that uses solar energy to charge something like your cell phone, which charges or anything that charges with a USB cable. Or here we have a solar and hand crank radio with a flashlight and USB charging. And so this has multiple ways to get power to this device to make sure that you are caught up to date on anything going on during the blackout. So now I'm just going to pause and let Greg show you some of these devices.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So this is an example of a little solar light. So there is a solar panel at the top. So the idea is you put it outside. There's a battery below this solar panel. There's a little battery that charges. And so at night, you can just turn it on and you have, some light in your house. Those little bubbles are great. They provide a lot of light. There's different models. This model here also has a solar panel on top and a battery inside. So you put those outside during the day and outside, and at night you have some light. Ariel talked about the crank radio. So this is an example of a cranked radio that you can charge by just pulling this crank here, and immediately you generate some power. You can also put it outside during the day for a fair amount of time. Say the whole day, you just leave it outside. There's a solar panel and a battery. The battery is inside. Here is the battery that is being charged when you put either the device outside in front of the sun, or if you crank it, this battery is charged. You can also put your own battery. So this little radio is very important, especially in case of disasters, to kind of stay abreast of what's going on and what's happening around you. So those are some examples. Another example is a little charger for your cell phone. So as you can see, it folds really well. You put it in your backpack or wherever, and then you need, to charge your cell phone or charge your mosquito zapper or anything like that. You have a solar panel here, and then usually there's a battery. This model doesn't have battery, but you can plug anything USB to it. So those are some examples of items that you can use when there is no power outside, when there is no power, and you can still have access to communication, light, and other life-saving sort of measures.
Thanks. So continuing on, another critical service is going to be water access. So one problem with when the power goes out is that we do not have access to the water in our cisterns. One solution to that is by using a solar water pump. So this example is actually a kit, which comes with solar panels, the connectors, a controller, and the pump. And later, Greg will show you like a design where you can create this yourself using the different components. Also, you may, showering, having hot water can be important. This solar shower uses the thermal energy of the sun to heat up the water, and then the height to give you a bit of water pressure. And finally, when the power is out, or especially during disasters, there can be a tendency for us to lose the ability to have drinking water, or not be able to go to the store, or to buy water, or the filter in your cistern may not work because there's no electricity. So although this filter is not a powered device, it is very important when the power goes out. The other critical service, it is critical, is comfort. And so making sure that you have some of those things that make sure that you can keep, be fine. So there's we have a mosquito zapper, fan, really any small device which charges with USB cable. You can use a power bank, whether it's a solar power bank or a regular power bank, to charge it. And so that can really help during any outages.
So following up on what Aya was talking about, so here is an example of a pump that works on DC power. DC power means you can plug it directly to a battery. So you might not be able to see what's written, but they give you some characteristics. This pump here is 60 watts, and it probably uses the flow rate that you can get out of it is approximately 1 gallon per minute. You can get a bigger model, such as this one, which is a 2.5 gallon per minute, and it's almost 100 watts. So depending on what you can do, and Aya will go into it in a second, depending on how much you can afford, but also what you're looking for and what you have in terms of battery, there's different type of pumps that you can use. And I will make a demonstration of how to use this pump later on. This here is an example of a little fan. There are bigger models, but here is a smaller fan that you can charge with a USB cable. This is very important. Yes, it's comfort, but it's also health. After the hurricane or after a big rain event like right now, there's a proliferation of mosquitoes. And mosquito zappers are really good to get rid of mosquitoes, which can carry dengue and other type of diseases. And fans are also very good to sort of, you know, just throw the mosquito away because they are not very good flyers. Those devices, again, they have a little port on the side here and here so that you can charge them with a USB device. So you can charge them with, you know, what I showed you earlier, this little portable solar charger. They also sell little panels like this one that have a USB cable at the end. And so you can easily charge them. And then again, at night, you're good to go. You have your fan, you have your mosquito zapper, you have a great night, and it's wonderful. Back to you.
So what about all of the things that you already have in your home that can't really be, you know, powered by solar? So for that, you can use a generator. But these do have some drawbacks in terms of they're quite expensive. They can be loud, and they're also powered by fossil fuels, which contributes to climate change and pollutes our environment. Sometimes it may be necessary to use a generator, especially if you want to power your entire home. But often you may need to just power a few lights, maybe the Wi-Fi, charge your laptop, possibly a mini fridge. So in this case, while you're waiting for the power to come back on, in this case, batteries can be a really great solution. So before we dive into more about batteries, we'll just, we'll cover the basics a bit. So learning about the different units so that when you are buying a battery, you can understand the label. So we're going to go into lecture mode for a bit, but just bear with me. So here is an analogy that I find very helpful for understanding electricity. Electricity can be very hard to picture, but it's the flow of electrons. It's much easier for us to picture something like the flow of water in a hose. And so if we're imagining water in a hose, voltage would be the pressure or the potential of power of that hose. The potential force of that hose. The current is the flow of those moving electrons. And this is dictated by the size, something like the size of the hose. The smaller the hose, the less flow that you would have. And finally, resistance, which is something that we won't really talk about actually in terms of batteries, but it would be anything that's stopping the flow. So something like sand in the pipes. So just to reiterate some of those units. So amps or ampere is a unit of electrical current. And in batteries, we will often see this as amp hours. So this is a measure of the storage of the battery or the current capacity. The volts or the voltage is a unit of electrical potential difference. And so that's what I was saying, the pressure or the force in that hose. And you'll often see volts on the batteries, but you also may know that there's a standard voltage in your wall outlet. And in the US, that's 120 volts. Before I keep going to talking more about units, I just wanted to point out a safety note that to be careful when working with high voltages, but also with high amperage, as both of these can be very dangerous. Most of the batteries that we're talking about here, if you operate them correctly, it shouldn't be a problem. So continuing on, you've learned about volts and amps. Now we can talk about power. So power is measured in watts, which is volts times amps. And that would be the flow rate of the water. And so it's the instantaneous measure of what the water is doing at one moment. Whereas energy is the amount of water that ends up in the bucket. So it takes a few minutes to fill the bucket, and that is showing you the watt hours. So if it took an hour to fill the bucket, then that would be like 1 watt times 1 hour. You have 1 watt hour. So just to reiterate, watts is a unit of power, and it is voltage times the current. And kilowatt hours is a unit of energy, so we use it to measure electricity. And it is, in this case, kilo is 1,000 watts times 1 hour. So if you want to know the energy use of a device, then you have to know the watts of the device and also how long you're using it, so how many hours it's plugged in. So now here we can practice what we just learned. Let's read a battery. So you can see on this battery, it says 12 volts, which is a measure of the electric potential. And most batteries are going to be multiples of this 12. And you can also see the amp hours, which measures the current storage capacity. And so this battery has 120 amp hours. So if we want to know the energy stored in this battery, we multiply the voltage times the amp hours and we get the watt hours. This battery is 1,440 watt hours. That means that this battery could power a 10-watt device, like your light bulb, for 6 days. Or if it was powering something like the water pump that Greg was showing before, which is 60 watts, then it would be able to power it for 24 hours. So more practice on reading labels. This is an appliance in your home. This is a fridge. It's also an Energy Star label. So Energy Star means that it's energy efficient, and it has to be certified under strict standards set by the EPA. And you can see here on the label, it tells you right away how much energy it uses each year. And so this fridge, you can tell, uses 584 kilowatt hours each year. And this is going to be, for fridges, it's not how long it's plugged in, because fridges are cycling. They're not always running at full power. And so that's why it's helpful to know the annual energy consumption from the label. Also, you can see here, they tell you a bit about the energy cost. In the VI, we have to multiply this by 4, but it gives you a good idea of what the lifetime cost of this fridge would be. So if we were to buy a less efficient model, we have to remember that even though it might be cheaper upfront in the store, over the lifetime, it's probably not going to be cheaper, because you're going to be paying 4 times this amount every year. So now that you understand how to read a label, how do you actually use a battery to charge some of the appliances in your home? So you can charge a battery using different sources of power. If you're going to use a renewable source, such as a solar panel, here are some of the components that you would need. So you would need a solar panel or another renewable energy source. This example is a 100-watt panel. You would also need a battery so that you can store that energy when the sun is not on, or when the sun is not shining. Because you also need, because the sun fluctuates over time, you also need a charge controller. So this is to protect the battery from those fluctuations, but also to ensure that it doesn't get overcharged or depleted while it's charging. So this is really protecting the battery so that it lasts a lot longer. And finally, when you want to plug in your device, you're going to need an inverter. Both the solar panel and the battery, they use direct current, which is called DC. But most of the devices in your home use alternating current, which is called AC. So this inverter is able to convert it to AC so that you can plug in your regular devices. You can also see that it looks like a wall outlet, which means it has the correct voltage as well. So it's 120 volts rather than the 12 volts of the battery. And so, yeah, this particular inverter, you can see it has this sine wave on it. This means that it's a bit more expensive, but it's also better for sensitive electronics. So it's called a pure sine wave inverter. So here's a system setup, but I'm going to let Greg show you a demonstration of how to set up this system.
Yes, good afternoon again, everyone. So we're just going to show you how to set up the system that Ariel just showed you. So here is your panel, your solar panel. Usually in the back, and you won't be able to see it, but in the back of a solar panel, there's a little sort of sticker with a lot of information on it. And it will tell you, among other things, how much energy or how much power, maximum power this panel can produce. So in this case, this is a 30-watt solar panel. As I mentioned, there are bigger panels that you can put on your house that can generate 250 or 300 watts. It's best for this type of purposes where you create your little setup at home to use something that doesn't create power that can actually kill you. So this is a 30-watt solar panel. This is a deep cycle battery. It's written on it that it's a deep cycle battery, so it's more appropriate for the type of uses than using a car battery. And Ariel will talk about that in a second. This here is a charge controller, so it's very easy. It tells you where to put the plus charges, usually which are in red, and where to put the negative charges, which are in black. And it also tells you where to plug the batteries, where to plug the solar panel, and where to plug the inverter. So very, very easy to use and a must-have. And then this is your inverter. So I'm just going to go ahead and sort of show you how to set up the system. So you look at your charge controller. The charge controller is extremely important. It prevents the battery from overcharging, and it also protects the battery when you draw it too much. You don't want to deplete the battery. You don't want to overcharge the battery. So this is, and you also want to be able to drain a certain amount of constant current out of the battery. So the charge controller really allows for all of that. And it's a really nice tool to have. It's also not too expensive. So the first thing you do is you're going to plug in the solar. Then you're going to plug in the battery. And again, on the charge controller, there are a lot of very clearly written instruction. So the negative is the black, the positive is the red. And what you have now is you have a battery being charged by the solar panel. So now you can sort of think about having different load. So if you were with us last week, you would have heard that batteries create what's called DC current, which is direct current. It's just a straight current coming out of batteries. So what you can do with those is you can power directly DC type tools, such as the pump that I showed you earlier. So this pump here, it's written DC 12 volt. So it takes DC current, so we can charge it. And so I will demonstrate to you that there's actually current coming out of it. I'm going to do a little experiment. This is a bucket full of water. So imagine that this is your system. And then this hose is just a little garden sort of device to water your plant, right? A watering can. So we're going to pump water out of your system, putting in a watering can, but you can also pump water out of your system to do whatever else. Right? And now we have water flowing directly because the pump is working, right? So this is if you have a DC, if you have an item that only works with DC current. So I'm just going to put this aside so I don't create any problem. Water and electricity don't get along. Now, if you have an item such as a fan that uses AC current, and the way you know that is because you can plug it directly into the wall. So what you need is you need to have an inverter. The inverter basically transforms your DC current out of your battery into AC current. As Ariel mentioned, there's two different types of inverter. There's what's called a square wave inverter. Those tend to be cheaper. This is an example from Home Depot, 100 watts, meaning that it can only sort of power things up to 100 watts. This is really good for charging a tablet, charging your laptop, or charging your cell phone or other simple devices like that. If you have, say, you're working on your laptop and you sort of want to watch videos or something like that, or if you have other type of sensitive equipment, you want to go with a slightly more expensive inverter, which is called a pure sine wave inverter. And as Ariel mentioned, usually there is a sign on it that says pure sine wave. So you connect your inverter to your charge controller. And then after that, you can use it as a normal outlet. So you can plug in, for example, your fan. You turn it on. There's usually a little light that turns on at the end. And now you can be real cool. And your little fan is powered. So now you know how to set up your system, and you know how to use the inverter to have access to this power. It's very important that you think and remember the maximum wattage that is written on the inverter. Here is 150 watts. So it means that you can only power things up to 150 watts. And Ariel talked about that in a second. The last thing I want to say is that I forgot to talk about, so now that you pumped your water out of your cistern, you still don't have power, but you still want to take a shower. So these here are great little tools. So you fill them with water, then you close them, and then you just leave them outside for the whole day, up in the sun. And the water is going to get warm, and then you can then hang it and take a shower at the end of the day. So this is really nice, when there's no power for a prolonged amount of time, and you worked outside all day and you just want to take a nice warm shower. And you can shampoo and everything. There's enough water for that in this little device. And then the last thing is that I wanted to show you, once you've sort of pumped the water out of your cistern, you can use some of those water filters. So this is another water filter. You fill this with water, and then you open this little thing, and here is the filter. So you can fill a whole bucket of clean, drinkable water. Or you can use those smaller items that you can put directly into your faucet, and sometimes they also come with a pump. So you can fill a water bottle or something like that. So anyway, so this is how you set up your system, very simple. The main thing is this charge controller that you must have. And then after that, it's just following the direction that are on the charge controller. And then once you have your water, you can do all sort of great things and stay with that. Ariel?
Thanks. So thank you, Greg, for showing us how to set up the system. If this was maybe too much for you or something that you're not interested in, you can buy a solar generator kit that's already assembled. So here I just have some examples that I found online of solar generator kits. You can see also the water pump is here again. It's also a kit that you could buy that is already assembled, or you can assemble it yourself. So if you're not going to use renewable energy like a solar panel to charge your battery, then it's still quite easy. You can, when the power is on, you can charge a portable power bank using a USB cord. So you just plug it straight into your wall outlet. If you have one of those deep cycle lead acid batteries that Greg was just showing, then you probably will need a battery charger, which is usually sold separately than the battery. And you need this to charge the device. So what can you power using batteries? So we're going to start small with the portable power banks. Some of the smaller ones, which just have a USB outlet, you can power any small USB devices, cell phones. For larger things that usually have a wall outlet, you can buy a larger portable power bank, which has a wall charger, and then you can plug in things like your laptop or Wi-Fi router, and you can use it that way. Another option, if you have a car, and we don't actually recommend this, but in an emergency, it may be the only thing that you have. And so you can use your car battery to power some of these devices. So when you're doing this, then you may need an inverter if you want to plug it in to a regular wall outlet, and you just connect the inverter to the battery. If you are charging using your car, car batteries are really not meant for this. They're meant to start the engine, so just a quick jump start, and they're not really meant for continuous charging. And so because of this, you should probably restart the engine every so often to make sure that the battery doesn't die while you're charging your devices. But it is an option in case of emergency. What we would recommend more than a car battery is something like a deep cycle or a lithium ion battery. And this can be combined with a converter, with an inverter. And for this, you can power a lot larger devices. So depending on the size, you can maybe power a mini fridge. This is not a regular washing machine, but a portable washing machine, which is for like RVs. You can have this just for emergencies, and you can use it to wash your clothes. Also, there's important medical devices that most of them can be charged using a battery, and so that can be very useful or life-saving when the power goes out. As Greg mentioned, you want to make sure that your inverter has enough wattage to support the device that you want. So how much power do different devices use? So this is all on our website, actually. So you can check it out more there. But here's just an example of what we have. So this is showing devices, critical devices you might use that are under 10 watts. So we have cell phone, LED light bulb, radio, Wi-Fi router. If you want the range, you can look on the label to find the exact number, but here's a general range for these devices. And how much time it's plugged in is going to dictate how much energy it uses. And so a cell phone doesn't take very long to charge, just maybe an hour or so. And that means that it doesn't use very much energy either. So your kilowatt hours for a cell phone is quite small. Whereas a Wi-Fi router, it runs all day, but because its power usage is so small too, its energy is not that much either. So here is a range of devices. So the smaller ones, and 1, 2, and 3, can mostly be powered with the battery setup that Greg had just showed you. If you're going to be powering some of these larger devices for longer, you may need to attach more solar panels so that it can charge, doesn't run out of charge. Or you can also attach more batteries to increase the amperage of it. These larger devices will probably not be supported by something like those batteries because they use such high wattage, and they also are plugged in for a long time, and so they use a lot of energy as well. Yeah, also, if you are interested in this, something like a home energy audit, just to get an idea of how much energy you use and what devices use the most so you can make changes, then you can just look at all the labels on your devices, think about how long you use each of them for, and then you just multiply that together and you get how much energy you're using for different devices. So we have an Excel sheet on our website which kind of does this for you. It's just an estimate, but it can really help you to understand what's going on in your home. Just before we leave, I just wanted to reemphasize how power outages, they are inconvenient, but in many cases they can be life-threatening. And so having some of these solutions like batteries can really help to save lives and can be used, if you need your medicine stored in a cold place like a fridge, you can have a mini fridge that is really just for those emergencies, or whether you need wheelchair for mobility or machines for breathing. There are other examples I'm sure that you guys know about, but this can really help you to be able to support yourself during an outage. So thank you all for listening, and many of this information is on our website at /powering through a blackout. And in addition, we will be posting this video online, and so you can rewatch it if you need to. So yeah, guess that's all.
Thank you, Ariel. We have 2 questions. Let's see. I think the questions are if we are planning to discuss wind turbines. So the answer is not today. We have a small wind turbine that we are going to install on a lab that we are building. As soon as it's done, we will talk about wind turbines. But it's difficult to have wind turbines in the Virgin Islands. The main reason is the FAA requirements, especially on St. Thomas. You know, the airport, a lot of the island, and a lot of the land surrounding the airport, we cannot build any wind turbines. So St. Thomas is relatively small, so it makes it just very difficult. On St. Croix, there are some wind turbines because it's a bigger island. The other issue with wind turbine is the fact that you're going to have some issues with the neighbors in terms of whether or not the neighborhood you live in really want to have a big structure that can be noisy next to them. There's been some tremendous progress in wind turbine technology in terms of noise and preventing impact on birds, etc. But it's still a contentious issue. Many people prefer to have them far away from any development so that there is no sort of issues with neighbors or different types of communities. I've seen a wind turbine on Water Island. So there are people who have wind turbines. I've also seen a turbine on St. Croix, and I believe WAPA is going to build more turbines on St. Croix. We will be talking about wind turbines for boats, but that will be in a few months. Are there any other questions?
It looks like there's a question about where can we buy the portable solar pack that you showed us?
The portable solar pack, any online retailer has it. The big one, Amazon, I believe Walmart also sell them. We can send some links. A great place to find also this is a website called Wirecutter, Wire and then Cutter. It's owned by the New York Times, and they also provide a lot of tips and full reviews of different types. So I would say go to Wirecutter, look at the different reviews, and then go to any major retailer, and you will be able to purchase that. Are there any other questions or comments? Our website is, so the question is, what is our website? So you can find all of this information on our website, as Ariel mentioned. And so our website is CGTC-usvi.com. So that's our website, CGTC-usvi.com. And you will be able to find the calculator that Ariel mentioned, the brochure that we talked about today, and a lot of cool information. So this question, I understand that car batteries are maybe not the best way, but if attached to a trickle charger, will it still work? Yeah, but it's really not built for, as Ariel mentioned, it's not built for continuous discharge the way that deep cycle batteries are. So I would say that you will still get longer life, better reliability, and better protection if you purchase a deep cycle battery. The trickle charger is great. I actually used one on my car battery the other day. For this type of application, we really recommend that you use a deep cycle battery. They are more appropriate than car batteries. All right.
Any more questions?
So I have a question, Ariel. If there is a very long power outages and I need to, so you showed us a lot of things to sort of be comfortable at home, etc. What if I want to wash my clothes?
Yeah, so we usually, if you were to use your washing machine, it uses a lot of electricity. And so you would need to have a much more robust system to wash your clothes using your regular washer. You could also have a portable washer that you might use only for these situations. And so this would be something similar to what's used in RVs or, travel, camping. And this uses a lot less energy. And so you can just use it powered by a battery and instead of having to have a full system or turn on your generator or something like that. Or yes, you can hand wash and dry outside. Solar dryer, use the sun. That's also an option, of course.
So drying outside is great. Actually, the state of Hawaii made it very easy for people to dry outside. Some communities were against it because they felt that it was unsightly. But they passed a lot of the regulations to really sort of encourage people to dry outside. It's usually I dry my clothes outside. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to dry them because washing machines, traditional washing machines have great spin cycle. So really drying outside is something that I encourage a lot of you to do. It saves a lot of energy and it uses the power of the sun. And washing, I would leave to those who like it. I still would recommend, especially if you have any sort of disability or if you are pressed for time, those little washing machines that Ariel mentioned are real lifesavers.
Yeah.
In general, go ahead, Ariel.
Oh, I was just going to say, following the hurricanes, there was a lot of problem with water damage to clothes. And if you leave this unattended, it can lead to mold, which is also a health hazard as well. So it can be very useful to have something like a portable washing machine where you can clean these clothes, dry them outside, and then not have to throw them away or not have a problem with mold.
So if there's no more questions, the last thing I want to say is, there is a lot of things that you can power yourself. You can build small little systems like the one that I showed you for less than $500, and that can get a lot of your needs satisfied. We don't actually, depending on your circumstances, you might realize that for a day or two or even for a week, you can get by just having a few little items powered, but you need to prepare for that and think ahead of time. So going back to what Ariel was saying earlier, as hurricane season approaches next year, or even now, because we're still in hurricane season, a few months before, just sort of ask yourself, if power goes out for a month, what is it that I must have? And really spend some time thinking about it. Do some of the calculation that Ariel mentioned and purchase the appropriate solar panel and battery system, as well as, if necessary, an inverter, so that you can get your needs satisfied. The best option is to have a full system, but even then, if you were with us last week, you had learned that there is a cost associated with it. Purchasing a system that satisfies every single one of your needs can be a very expensive proposition. So really think about, what is it that you need? What is it that you need in a week or a month to survive and be comfortable and healthy, and then make the appropriate decision. But there's a lot of options right now, as we showed you today, to really be able to power through a blackout. Ariel, do you want to say something?
Oh, I was just pulling up, like, for those who registered for this webinar, we asked you what's the most important thing in your home that you need to power. And so we can see some of the responses of like what people deem as quite important. One of those being a refrigerator, which makes a lot of sense because that's where you're able to have your food. And so something like having a more energy efficient fridge or even a mini fridge just for those essential things that you need to keep cold can really help you to be able to keep this on even when the power is out.
I would say also that I see a lot of people have answered home, which makes a lot of sense. But again, there's a cost benefit sort of analysis that you have to do to make the decision whether or not you want your entire home to be powered when things go wrong, say for a week or a month. A lot of people are mentioning water pump. So water pump are good. The issue with water pump is that when they run, they don't use that much power, but they use a lot of power just to kind of get started, kind of like a car. You know, they need that initial kick. So a lot of energy, you know, delivered at once just to get the water pump going. And then after that, you know, it's fine. So you can, you know, and my calculation is they approximately need something like 1,000 to 2,000 watts just to get going. So you would have to have a quite big of a system in order to get your water pump going if you had, you know, solar power at home. If you cannot afford to have, you know, solar panels on your roof and the batteries with it, then I would recommend that you look into those little pumps, you know, to fill buckets and just get by. They are very inexpensive, easy to set up, and they make your life much easier than opening the cistern and getting buckets out. It's healthier that way, you save energy, and you also run less risk of injuring yourself. So again, really think about your circumstances, both physical and health and financial, and then make the right decision.
Well, I think if there are no more questions, then we should go ahead and finish now so that if anyone has like something at 1, then they have time to get to their next appointment. Yeah, thank you all for coming and for listening. And hopefully you learned some valuable tips here. And just to make sure that, you know, if you have any of these devices, make sure they work before the power goes out so that you're not just stuck with, you know, something that should be working, but you haven't checked it. So that's just like last advice to give to anyone who's looking at some of these solutions.
And actually, it's actually an important advice. So it's very important that you practice and that you get real familiar with those. In times of emergency, there is a lot of information coming at you. You also are in a, you know, your mind might not be super clear. So really practice, make sure you're familiar with this, do it many times. And the more you do it, you will realize that the more sort of things you will understand and the more sort of, not automated, but the more sort of intimate you will be with a lot of this. So if you were to purchase any of these devices, as Ariel mentioned, practice, use them, get familiar with them. It's very, very important that you do that. It's as important to purchase as to actually practicing and getting familiar with this. Because like I said, when things go wrong, when things are a bit off, you will make a lot of mistakes. And we're talking about electricity. So there's always a safety risk that you have to be aware of. So practice, get familiar with it and have fun.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll see you on Monday for our final webinar of Energy Month. Bye.
Bye, everyone.